In the world of professional golf, no event carries the same weight, mystique, or resistance to change as the Masters Tournament. It isn't just a major championship, it's an institution. Augusta National doesn't react to trends, doesn't follow external pressure, and rarely explains itself. Traditions are guarded obsessively, from the invite-only field to the famously unchanged course aesthetics. That's why even a whisper of internal reconsideration sends shockwaves through the sport. And why this particular story has caught so many people off guard. Because when Augusta moves, it never does so lightly. Over the past few weeks, a quiet but consistent thread has begun to emerge across several of golf's most credible outlets. Golf Digest, Golf Channel, and Yahoo Sports have all independently reported on behind-the-scenes discussions connected to the 2026 Masters. None of them claim a finalized decision. None suggest an official announcement is imminent. But taken together, their reporting points to something highly unusual, a deliberate internal review of how the tournament approaches 2026. When multiple respected publications start circling the same subject without coordination, it's rarely coincidence. And that's where the intrigue begins. What makes this situation especially striking is the silence from Augusta National itself. There has been no press release, no denial, no carefully worded clarification. And historically, that silence is often the loudest signal of all. Augusta doesn't respond to speculation unless it has to. Instead, it allows narratives to develop naturally, stepping in only when the moment suits them. That pattern has fueled the belief that these reports aren't speculative noise, but early indicators of a decision already in motion, one simply not ready for daylight yet. The reason this matters so much is simple. At Augusta, there are no small changes. A minor adjustment elsewhere in golf might be a footnote. At the Masters, it becomes a defining moment. Field composition, qualification criteria, eligibility pathways, these aren't administrative details here. They shape careers, legacies, and the competitive balance of the most iconic week in golf. Even the suggestion of recalibration forces players, fans, and insiders to rethink what the future might look like, which leads to the question hovering over the entire sport right now. Why would the Masters, the most tradition-bound tournament in golf, even consider change at this moment? And what does that say about where the game is heading next? Strip away the speculation, and a clear pattern begins to form. Across Golf Channel, Golf Digest, and Yahoo Sports, the reporting aligns on one central point. Augusta National is reassessing how the 2026 Masters field is constructed. Not the date, not the venue, but who gets the invitation. The agreement between outlets is striking. And that's usually the first sign something real is happening behind closed doors. The most concrete reporting comes from Golf Channel, which has focused on early projections for the 2026 field. Their coverage highlights a growing emphasis on ranking-based inclusions and how certain qualification pathways may carry more weight than before. Importantly, this isn't framed as expansion or contraction, but refinement. Subtle shifts in criteria that could change the profile of the field without changing its size. On the surface, it sounds technical, but the implications run far deeper. Golf Digest takes the analysis a step further by asking what those adjustments mean for the identity of the Masters itself. Their reporting suggests that even small recalibrations can quietly tilt the balance between tradition and modern competitive reality. Who earns a spot, how long past champions remain exempt, and how international players are evaluated all shape the character of the tournament. Change the inputs, and the feel of the week inevitably evolve, say whether Augusta admits it or not. What's crucial here is separating confirmed reporting from informed speculation. Confirmed: internal discussion, early modeling, and scenario planning for 2026. Speculation: how far those changes might go, and who they ultimately affect most. And through it all, one truth remains constant. Augusta National never leaks by accident, which raises the question of why these stories are surfacing now. From the outside, any adjustment tied to the Masters can feel jarring. But internally, the logic is far more measured. Augusta National Golf Club operates in a version of golf that no longer exists in isolation. The rise of global tours, shifting alliances, and fragmented competitive pathways have created a landscape where comparability is harder than ever. For an invitational built on selecting the right field, those pressures don't disappear just because tradition demands silence. And that's where the tension begins. One of the biggest challenges Augusta faces is ranking system volatility. World rankings no longer tell a simple, universally trusted story. Different tours carry different strengths of field, limited event schedules distort data, and elite players can fall or rise rapidly without a clear reflection of form. According to coverage from Yahoo Sports, this uncertainty has forced governing bodies and tournament organizers to rethink how merit is measured. For Augusta, whose credibility rests on the quality of its field, ignoring that reality would be the bigger risk. That's why this moment isn't about radical reinvention. It's about prevention. Quiet adjustments now reduce the chance of visible controversy later. By refining qualification pathways before they become problematic, Augusta protects the competitive balance of the tournament without having to react publicly under pressure. It's a controlled response to instability elsewhere in the sport, designed to preserve the Masters' authority rather than undermine it, and that distinction matters more than it first appears. History supports this approach. Past changes to eligibility, exemptions, and international access were once met with skepticism, even outrage. Yet over time, they became accepted parts of the Masters fabric. Fans adjusted, players adapted, the tournament endured. Seen through that lens, the 2026 discussions don't signal disruption. They signal continuity by other means. And that may be the most Augusta decision of all. The most immediate impact of any adjustment will be felt by the players living on the margins. Fringe qualifiers, those hovering around ranking thresholds or relying on late-season form, operate in a narrow window where opportunity is never guaranteed. A subtle shift in qualification logic can turn a career-defining invitation into a near miss. These are players for whom the Masters isn't an annual expectation, but a rare opening. If the criteria tighten or prioritize different signals of performance, that margin becomes even thinner and far less forgiving. International players sit at the center of this conversation as well. Global pathways into elite golf have never been more complex, and comparing form across tours is increasingly difficult. Small recalibrations may benefit those competing regularly against top-tier fields, while disadvantaging players whose schedules or tours don't translate cleanly into ranking points. Over time, that could reshape the geographic makeup of the field, subtly altering the Masters' global identity without ever announcing a philosophical shift. Then there's the delicate balance between veterans and emerging talent. Long-standing exemptions reward history, loyalty, and legacy, values Augusta has always respected. But modern competitive reality demands that current form matters too. Adjustments that favor relevance over reputation could accelerate generational turnover, quietly shortening windows that once stayed open longer. For younger players, that may create urgency. For veterans, it could feel like time suddenly moving faster than expected. What makes this moment particularly consequential is how lasting the effects could be. One altered pathway doesn't just change a single year's field, it changes momentum, preparation, and career planning. For some players, 2026 won't represent a breakthrough opportunity. It may mark the moment they realize a door has started to close. And in a tournament where chances are limited by design, timing has never mattered more. If history is any guide, Augusta National Golf Club won't rush to clarify anything. Silence has always been part of how the Masters communicates authority. By refusing to comment, Augusta allows expectations to reset organically, without locking itself into language it may later regret. In many ways, that restraint is the message. When the Masters chooses not to speak, it's often because it's still shaping the outcome and prefers the world to wait. The next real signals won't come through headlines or press conferences. They'll arrive quietly in familiar places. Official invitations will begin to tell a story before anyone explains it. Qualification confirmations will reveal which pathways matter most and which have subtly faded in importance. Even the phrasing used by tournament officials, historically precise and deliberate, may shift just enough to indicate a recalibration. At Augusta, wording has always been policy, if you know how to read it. What's important to understand is what this moment is not. It's not an abandonment of tradition, and it's not a reactionary move driven by outside noise. Everything about the reported approach suggests preservation, not disruption. By refining the framework now, Augusta protects the integrity of the competition before inconsistencies elsewhere force its hand. The Masters has never waited for crisis to act. It prefers quiet alignment over public correction. That's why 2026 already feels different. even without an announcement. Not because the Masters is changing who it is, but because it's choosing how it wants to remain relevant on its own terms. And as the pieces slowly fall into place, one question lingers longer than any rumor ever could. Is this the moment the Masters quietly entered a new era?